joined now by CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez, who is here with me. Evan, there's some significant new details you've been reporting out about the suspect. What do we know?
Well, we know now that, perhaps some of the explanation of why the FBI very quickly started treating this as a terrorism investigation. One of the things they found at the scene was an ISIS flag that is believed to have been with the suspect. And so, again, that's one of the key factors here in treating this as a federal terrorism investigation. The other thing that went to this determination by the FBI was finding IEDs inside an ice chest inside the truck. Again, that's one of the reasons why we heard a couple of booms where the bomb squads was essentially detonating to make sure that the devices were rendered safe, to make the scene safe for investigators to be able to do their work. Now, again, one of the things that they're still working on is to figure out whether anyone else might have been associated with this person. They know a lot about this person. They know he's a U.S. citizen. They know that there are some links in Texas. We don't know exactly at this point whether he was still living in Texas or just perhaps moved from there. Again, all of that is still under this investigation. We also know that the vehicle, Phil, was owned by someone else. It was rented through an app where people put their private vehicles up for rental. It's very common nowadays for people to do that. And so one of the things we did was we went to the person who owned the vehicle. And that person is still alive, clearly. So it's not the person who was behind the wheel at the time of this incident.
Right now, federal agents have taken over the scene. They say that they are looking into possible explosives that a source tells us were found in the suspect's pickup truck. And they're also looking to see whether he had any associates. Let's go to CNN's Omar Jimenez. He is live in New Orleans on this story. Omar, we are standing by for an update from law enforcement that had shifted from noon your time to 2 p.m. We are standing by for that. In the meantime, what more are you learning?
Yeah, so right now here at the scene, we are just outside the French Quarter here in New Orleans. This is about as close as you can get. As you can obviously see, the state troopers here. We've also seen federal investigators, I should say, go in and out over the course of really just a few hours, but of course, since the early morning hours here, likely as well, we've seen coroner vans come in and out of this area on top of this. So it's been a very active scene to this point. But of course, the big question for a lot of these people who have been walking by, there have been many tourists here in the area as well, is not just how this could have happened, but why as well. You mentioned some of the latest reporting that we've gotten from our CNN colleagues from law enforcement sources that an ISIS flag was found in this suspect's truck. And then on top of that, at least one of those sources says explosives was found in a chest in that truck as well. So likely, at the very least, there did seem to be a plan here. This did not seem to be a spur-of-the-moment thing, and that is what we are hearing reflected from law enforcement as well. The FBI, of course, investigating this as an act of terrorism. But take a listen to what we heard from the New Orleans police earlier today.
It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could.
And look, for those who are not familiar with New Orleans, this part of Bourbon Street, the French Quarter, is one of, if not the most popular parts of the city here, especially on a night like New Year's Eve. And of course, we know this happened just in the initial few hours of 2025. And then you get to the heart of this. There are at least 10 people that have been killed, over 30 injured, people that, again, were just enjoying the very first few hours of this year. And in some of the videos that we've seen out of the scene, pretty horrible at this point. But there are even some who appear to be trying to check on their loved ones, or in shock at what they're seeing in front of them, likely what happened in just an instant, again, in those initial few moments of 2025 here. And outside of the scene itself, there's been a lot of foot traffic back and forth. There was already a lot going on in the city, obviously, before this happened. A big football game happening as well, so a lot of extra tourists in town that wouldn't ordinarily be here. But of course, all of them, no matter what they're here for, is now at the center, is looking at this as sort of the center of their visit, and with the same questions that we all have. Why exactly did this happen, and how exactly did this happen, even if we are getting some clues now, Brianna?
Yeah, such a horrible scene, horrific stories coming out of it. Omar, thank you for the report from New Orleans. And with us now, we have CNN senior law enforcement analyst and former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Andrew, you're hearing the reporting there. We're waiting for more information. We expect that we'll learn more at this briefing that is coming up here in the next hour. What are you expecting to find out?
Well, I mean, I think it's possible we'll learn the identity of this attacker. And you know, honestly, Brianna, there's so many things, so many questions that we have for the law enforcement community at this point. But I think Evan's absolutely right. They are really racing now to be able to take as many steps as they can before that identity of the subject gets out, because it gives law enforcement a little bit more freedom to move, to do some things covertly, to show up at people's houses who they want to talk to without those folks expecting them to be there. Things like that can give them just a little bit of an edge in an interview or an interaction that might lead to important information. It's highly likely that this person left behind a trail of activity in his personal life, in his internet searches, on his electronics devices. So they want to do everything they can to locate all of that evidence as quickly as possible, obtain search warrants for locations and vehicles and places where those things might be held, and then to exploit those items for intelligence purposes very quickly. Because again, the race here is to find out if this person was working with or planning with or training with anyone else. And right now it seems like they don't know a whole lot.
Yeah, and the motive. We are getting potential clues into that, knowing that this individual had an ISIS flag with them. Obviously, Andy, we're still waiting to learn more, but what does that tell you? What questions does that raise for you?
Well, I mean, if as an investigator, it's a pretty clear indicator that this person is in the very least case, someone who is inspired by the foreign terrorist organization, ISIS. In the worst case, he might actually be a member of or an operative for that group or for people who are associated with that group. So that's a pretty broad spectrum of possibilities there, but it's super important for our law enforcement and intelligence folks to be able to shed some light on that. I am sure as they locate or as they identify what we call facilities for him, those are email addresses, phone numbers, texting accounts, social media accounts. They are scouring all of their data sets and intelligence data sets to see if there was ever any indication of this person. They want to know, is this someone who we knew about or should have known about? Did we know, when did if they're not native to the United States, when did they come here? If they are a US citizen, did they travel overseas at different times? So all of that information is out there, but they just need some really key specifics about the subject before they can get, informative returns on some of those queries. But it's a race right now.
Yeah, and part of that is looking as they are to see what his associations are. How do they do that? Can you pull the curtain back on that for us?
Sure. So there's all kinds of intelligence data sets that the FBI and its intel partners have access to. Some of them, I'll use one that we know from a lot of discussions over the last year. We spent a lot of time talking about the renewal of the FBI's 702 authority. That's under FISA Section 702. The FBI can monitor or collect the communications of foreign terrorists overseas. And that's important to us because on rare occasions, you have individuals here in the United States who are talking to or making contact with foreign terrorists overseas. So that is an example of one data set that they will look at as soon as they have facilities or identifiers that they can run through it. They want to see, even if this is somebody we've never heard of before, we've never investigated before, did this person kind of stray into our intelligence collection net and we weren't aware of it? Did this person have contacts with people that are concerning for us? So all of those pieces of information will help build a rich picture of whether or not how deeply this person was involved with international terrorism or not. They may have been entirely just a lone offender who consumed online propaganda, became radicalized here in the United States, and then took it upon themselves to act. We have certainly seen that to be the case, in many prior incidents. So that's really the light they're trying to shed on this, because it all goes to that question of, is there an ongoing threat that we need to be ready for?
Yeah, all important questions. Andy, thank you so much for your insights. We really appreciate it.